Hello there. It's day 5 of our podcast. I'm Patrick, Vicar of Holy Trinity, Claygate. Just wondering how you're doing. If you're struggling, maybe get in touch with a member of your small group. You might have friends and neighbours to call upon. If you don't, there is an email and a phone number. Ring our pastoral team. We'd love to do what we can to help you. We are here for you. You don't have to be a church member. Today I've been reflecting. I needed to get out of the house. I've been feeling as though I'm in a bit of an isolation bubble, just enjoying the sunshine at the moment. Of those I'm in touch with, some are doing really well and positive. Others are struggling a bit. Worries over daily provisions, over health and healthcare, over money and work and how to work, and if there will be any work to do. Among other things, I've been preparing for Sunday worship, and our theme for this Sunday is Getting Right with God. It's really a message about forgiveness. Do join us at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. We'll send you the link. Life feels very different. I'm needing to learn new skills. Everything just seems to be taking much longer. And I know there's a few areas that I will seriously need to improve my competency, not least filming stuff like this. Amongst it all, I suppose I have a feeling of relative impotence. There's a limit to what I can do to change the situation of others. But I suppose I've come to the conclusion I can do my little bit and make my little contribution along with other people, and maybe together it'll make a significant difference. I've not been able to get the passage from 1 Kings 17 out of my mind. It's a passage about the prophet Elijah and his interaction with a widow. The background is that Elijah had been asked by the Lord to declare a famine in the land. The passage for me speaks of generosity out of extreme poverty when everything else is stripped away. And it also speaks to me of total dependence on God. So Elijah announces this great drought in the land, and for a while he's doing okay. He's got food, he's fed by ravens, and he drinks water from a brook. But he eventually was impacted by the famine too. Because of the drought, the brook dried up. The Lord then sent Elijah to an unusual character, to a widow. Widows were very poor within that culture, widow Zarephath. And we join the story in 1 Kings 17, starting to read at verse 10. If you've got a Bible, you might want to follow. So he did as he was told and went to Zarephath. A widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so that I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug, and I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you've said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What have you against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" "Give me your son," Elijah replied. He took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, "Lord my God, you've brought tragedy even on this widow I'm staying with by causing her son to die." Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, "Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child, carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, "Your son is alive." Then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you're a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." Just a few brief reflections. A really, really powerful and challenging story. Challenges me in all sorts of ways and all sorts of different levels, and I think it speaks into our situation, and thankfully things aren't that desperate for many of us at the moment, but it might feel like that to some. Firstly, in famine, there is fear and desperation. Also opportunity for incredible faith and generosity. In the story, there's tragedy, death, and resurrection. I think a message of hope for us too. In these times, we are going to be challenged in many, many ways, but maybe out of our relative poverty and nothingness, maybe the Lord will stir up a spirit of generosity in us. Some of you will be learning to pray in a different way for our daily needs, our food, medication, company, and the assurance that we're not in this alone. The Lord's always with you. Lord, would you teach us how to trust and how to pray?